competitions work at my high school, the robotics team, is you build a robot that has wheels that can move, and the competition is based around it having some sort of an arm which can pick up balls and score them, sort of like a mixture of mini golf and basketball. And there's a lot of other factors, like like how efficient is your robot, that comes into the competition. And so I spent the past couple weeks trying to learn everything that I could about programming and building, so I could be useful to my team next year when I'm on it again. And so basically, we started off the year with me building my chassis, which is like the structure of the robot. The wheels and the motors and the metal parts that keep it all together. And then put on an XD computer where all the programming is stored in. And then these two things on the side control the motors. And so basically at first I learned how to program the robot so that it would just move. I can make it so it could, for a few seconds, move to the right, for a few seconds move to the left by controlling each of the two motorized wheels. And then we moved on to a little bit more technical stuff. We added on some sensors, like an ultrasonic sensor, which senses objects, like a distance between an object in front of it. And so we would program it so it would move forward until the ultrasonic sensor would sense something a certain amount of millimeters away, and then it would stop. And then, or we would play around with that. And there was another one called the light sensor, which would detect color. And so basically you'd stick that on the bottom of the robot, and it would follow a line, essentially. And it would sense if the color is black, it would go. If it hit white, it would turn until it found the black again. So it would essentially follow the black line. And another one we did was touch sensors. Look like I have it on my robot right now. A touch sensor is basically a button, and you press it and the robot will go, or do whatever you want to, essentially. And so taught me how to use those sensors because there's different competitions with the robotics team that use different types of sensors. The main one, we use an Xbox controller to control the robot's movement. There's not really a whole lot. It's called FRC, is the robotics competition that my high school team does. And so the last thing we did was we built an arm, because that's a large part of the competition is scoring baskets with the ball and the arm. And that was the last thing we did. There's actually a glitch with servo that makes the arm go up and down. So the claw can open and close, but the arm can't move up and down like it's supposed to. We weren't able to fix that in time for this, but so behind us, this is my programming so far. This is all the code. I think there's about 50 lines of it. Up here, basically this large section basically just defines everything on the robot, names everything. Like, for example, it names these motors, and so later on I can call something and it would understand what I was calling it. For example, motor D is this motor right here, and it knows that that's motor D because I defined it up here. And so that's basically what everything up here is. And then as I go down, everything down here is basically, I'm saying if I press a certain button, I want this motor to move at 75 units. It's 75, I don't have no idea what unit it is, but it basically makes the motor move, and so that's all right with me. Can I scroll down? Yeah. And down here, you get to the arm, and so it's set at negative, the claw is set at negative 25 because it moves similar to it's a 25 again, it's just a unit. It'll move 25 units, which is what I want it to move, and so it'll close on the ball when it gets in range of it. And so, basically I set it up so I built a makeshift Xbox controller of 3 buttons, turn on my robot. Basically these 2 buttons control the motor, this button controls the claw, similar to how it would in the competition. So it goes forward like this, you can control it, move it this way or that way. I can't make it move in reverse though, I don't have enough buttons for that. So it'll go like this, and it'll break off. And when it gets in range of the ball, I press this button, and it'll close in the ball, and it'll go forward on the paper, so it's rolling around everywhere. And yeah, so not exactly like the robotics team in my school because I don't have an Xbox controller, but yeah, it's more or less like that. And yeah, I was playing around with the servo to see what was wrong with it so the arm could move up and down. But I think the way that we were programming is a little bit, I don't think the servo, we were trying to use the same way that we programmed the motors in the claw, where a specific unit would make it move a certain amount, or a certain speed. But I think it's a little bit different. I haven't figured it out yet, so I'll see if I can do that sometime soon. That's about it.
Questions? I'd like all the ones here, Lex, Josh, and Jen, to ask a question to Andrew. Come up with something. Yeah.
Why does it move backwards?
Does it move backwards because I only have 3 buttons, right? And if I wanted to make it move so I could turn it or make it move forward, I would need to program it so that each button would control each motor, and then it would, each would just go forward based on which button I would press. And the 3rd button is made only for controlling this claw, right? You see on the NXT computer right here, there are these 4 ports, right? This one is connected to the motor controller, right? Then these 3 are left for any sensors I want, right? So that means I can only use 3 buttons. So that was a bit of a challenge.
Good question. Yes.
Yes.
I see you have a fancy little wheel in the back there. How does that work?
That's a good question, Sasha. This is called an omni wheel. This is convenient because it moves like this, but then it also has little wheels that move like this as well, so it can go in all directions. That's why it's called an omni wheel. Yep.